Hello, Kyle. How are you? Yep, connecting in the audio. Great. Good to see you here. Thanks for being here. And a few more joining. Super. All right, this is Rick Roller, and thanks for being with us tonight. Tonight we have Dan Naylor, the owner of our school and the technical advisor for tonight's class. He's going to be running all the background information. I'm Rick Roller. I'm a 45-year veteran of this business, and I write part of the state exam from time to time, but haven't done that in the last year or so. But I used to write. I did the whole test for Texas. Boy, did I have a good review for Texas for a number of years. But so I write exams, but I also have been a full-time agent now for about 45 years and a full-time educator. And I'm delighted to be here with you. And what we're going to do tonight is to get you tuned up to take this multiple choice test so you can get your ticket and you can go out and start selling real estate. And we want you to pass the exam the first time. So we have a series of these classes that you can tune into, and they're about 45 minutes to an hour long. And then we go through about a dozen questions, sometimes a few more, sometimes, a few less. But these are questions that are on topics that we know are real important someday when you're going to be sitting in front of a computer where you're trying to get a passing score. So pay attention to what we're going to be talking about tonight, because they're going to be very important. Tonight, we're going to be dealing with different types of disclosures, some national disclosures, some state disclosures, some, like I said, some federal disclosures. But let's start right off with question number one. And this one deals with environmental hazards, and there are a number of them, but there's only one that's kind of decays, and it produces a odorless, colorless gas, and that should give you some hints here. Now, it's not carbon monoxide. That's what comes out of your car, out of the tailpipe, and why you want to be careful not to run your car with the garage door closed. And it's not lead. Lead doesn't decay. I mean, lead will just endure. Lead will be around longer than we will. So it can eliminate those two. And now you might think about mold. Well, does mold really decay? Well, it kind of might. It grows and then it dies, and then it grows and dies, and but the right answer for this is C, radon. Radon is a radioactive, colorless, odorless gas that is released upon decaying, and it's present in Utah. We have it here. There's some areas where it's more present. Where I started in the real estate business, I started in Grand Junction, Colorado, and it was so bad in Grand Junction that we had to get a radon test on every sale. Every sale had to have a radon survey done on their property. And that was just part of the state requirements, so that people knew what they were getting as far as radioactive radon gas. And, it's also one of the problems was Grand Junction, Colorado had a situation where they had a uranium mill there that was actually purifying it. And people used to go and get that sand that was kind of a leftover thing. It was great for fill around your foundations until they figured out it still had radioactive material in it. So that was a mess. And, it had nothing to do with the higher leukemia rates that that particular area had. And of course, I lived up on the mountains, so it didn't really affect us. But anyway, number one is C. And you're going to see this, but you're not going to smell it and you're not going to feel it. But the correct answer is C. Let's go to number two, please. Okay, which of the following contributes to mold growth? So you want to have a really good mold crop in your home? Well, what did you got to do? How about airtight walls and windows? If you're leaning towards that one, that's good, because that's warm and fuzzy. That's the correct answer. Not dry, dusty interiors, not well-ventilated homes, and not central air. It's airtight walls and windows kind of leads towards mold growth. If you want less mold in your home, just keep the fresh air flowing through there, and you're going to be in a much better situation than if you didn't. So airtight walls and windows, mold growth. Number three, please. Asbestos can be a health hazard because it can become Fragable, friable. It's C. Okay, and that is the correct answer. In other words, it crumbles, and then it becomes smaller particles, and then you can breathe it in, and it's not good at all. And one of the abatements for asbestos is they encapsulate it sometimes. And if you're living in a way older home, that had one of those coal burning furnaces, and they had converted it to natural gas, those furnaces had a lot of asbestos tape that was put around the ducting material. And what you can do to mitigate that is you can encompass that. I mean, you can take another type of layer of a product that they have. It's kind of a polyethylene type, plastic type product, and you can roll those over those, and it'll encapsulate those, and that'll be a good thing. So the word encapsulated has something to do with asbestos, but that's not what makes it the health hazard. What makes it the health hazard is it disintegrates into really fine particles, which become airborne, and then you ingest them, or you breathe them in one way or another, and that is not good. That it's going to get you in, well, it's going to get cancer. Let's go to number 4, please. Circla. Circla is primarily out there to handle what? Now, this is if you're thinking, wow, Circla, gee, that's kind of a long acronym. Yeah, it is, and it's a federal law. So it has nothing to do with water rights or building codes. It has everything to do with hazardous waste. And if you have a we'll look at that in a minute. But if you have polluted sites, I mean, we have a number of them in Salt Lake City, and it's not unusual for even smaller towns, if they've had different types of manufacturing and mills and whatnot that have hazardous materials that have been left over. We have several sites in Utah where we've had to put a layer of dirt on top of them so that they're not a problem. Park City, Utah has a lot of problems with mill tailings and whatnot that have some toxic materials in it. But Circla mainly has to do with hazardous waste, which is C. It's not a building code thing, it's not a water rights thing, and it's certainly not a wetland thing, okay? So it's all about hazardous waste. Let's go to number 5, please. Yeah, having fun yet? Okay, well, I hope so, because you're going to see these again sometime. All right, former industrial sites, which may still be environmentally contaminated, are called gray lands, wetlands, red fields. Well, have a lot of colors in there, but none of those are right. The right one is A, brownfields. And like I mentioned, we have several brownfield type areas here in the Midvale area, and they decided that rather than trying to move all that material out, they would just cap it, and that's what they've done. And they've done that a lot in Park City as well. Which is one of the reasons why, if you want to sell property in Park City, you need to become very well acquainted with the area, because there's a lot of properties in Park City where subdivisions have been built on some of these brownfields, which have been covered. And it's really not going to affect anything. They put enough of a cap on it, you should be okay, but you probably don't want to do any gardening in those areas unless you do the garden boxes, and you bring soil in, because you don't want your roots to go down through that cap and then pull some of that contamination out into your tomatoes. That'd be, really sad. So don't do that. Anyway, so you have brownfields, and that's industrial sites. Tie those two words together, and you'll be fine on that one. Let's look at number 6, please. Now, number 6 is the distance between wetlands and buildings on a parcel of land containing regulated wetland is called a no-build zone, a no-fly zone. Yeah, right. Yeah, you could fly over it if you want to. Small aircraft, big aircraft, doesn't matter. Okay, a safety zone or a buffer zone. Now, if you pick buffer zone, you're in good shape, because that's the right answer. It's not a no-build zone. It's not a no-fly zone. It's not a safety zone. It is a buffer. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep those wetlands, which a lot of birds and migratory type fowl that come in and, that fly into those. And we have a lot of those around the Great Salt Lake, and it's very important to them because that's part of their migration as they go south for the winter and whatnot. But it's not enough just to leave those areas alone. You need to have a buffer zone so that, there's less disturbance in those areas. And this is a very common question. So the distance between wetlands and buildings on a parcel of land containing regulated wetland is called a buffer zone. Buffer zone. Okay. We are going over definitions tonight. I mean, a lot of the exam is understanding the vocabulary. And I have a tool for that purpose. It is a Quizlet program. I know a lot of your high schoolers and some of your community colleges use a lot of Quizlet type programs in their teaching, but it's a vocabulary teacher. If you want one of those, just get a hold of me and I will get one to you, a link to that, and you can get one of those Quizlet programs. There's about 280 some words on there that are very important for the exam. There's no cost for it. I just want you to pass the exam the first time, and so does Dan. And so, we make that available to you. You can get a hold of me at rickroller.com. Well, my email is rick@rickroller.com. That's rick@rickroller.com. Or you can call me 801-556-8000. That's 801-556-8000. And I'll get one of those right out to you. I'll get you a link to it, and then you can do it. In fact, in the link, it'll also have the Quizlet link in there as well. So, you can get both those with just one contact. But the distance between wetlands and buildings is a buffer zone. And then very, very common question. Number 7, please. Number 7 talks about the Environmental Protection Agency, affectionately called the EPA. And what do they enforce? Well, they're really, they don't enforce water rights. Water rights are all state law issues. And in our state, they're regulated by the state engineer's office, the Utah State Engineer's Office. That's what water right. Building codes could be either city or county. Depending. I mean, if your property is in a city, the city codes would prevail. But if you're in a in an area that hasn't been incorporated into the city yet, and then it's like a county area, then it's going to be regulated by the county codes. Building codes is not the right answer that we're looking for here, because they're not, we have the Uniform Building Code, which is kind of been adopted by a lot of different states. We have several different statutes that, like the statute of frauds is another uniform type code, that because there's so much commerce that happens over state lines. You could be living in California, but own property all over the country. And a lot of Californians own property here in Utah. And that's fine. You don't have to be a Utah resident to buy Utah real estate. You don't even have to be a U.S. citizen to buy Utah real estate. We sell a lot of it to international investors and whatnot. And we'll probably see a lot more of that, as our economy slows down a little bit. And there's going to be some tremendous buys. In fact, I've been contacted by 2 different buyers from out of state just this week, one today and one yesterday, that want to be put on a notification list on good buys that I go out and find in the market. And they're willing to buy anything that makes sense, particularly if it has a pretty good discount on it, and they pay cash, and they're you like those kind of buyers, because then you go out looking for deals. You drive by a building, it's vacant, there's nothing happening with it. You walk around it, there's nobody around. You talk to the neighbors, they say, yeah, that's been vacant for about 6 months. And you look up the owner and you talk to him and you say, do you want to sell your building? And he says, yeah, well, I had a tenant in and I thought I had another tenant online, but then he fell through and I'm a little bit discouraged. I haven't had any activity on it at all. There's no signage on it. What do you expect? But nevertheless, there's opportunities that are going to start appearing for you as soon as you get that license. So we want you to get it right away. Okay. So the EPA, what do they deal with? Water rights? No, that's the engineer's office. Building codes, that's either city or county. Lending laws, what's that have to do with the EPA? I mean, come on, give me a break. Okay. That only leaves clean water. And if that's the one you're leaning towards, good for you, because that's the correct answer. Clean water laws, the EPA, they're big on that. Okay, and so you should know that. What about the test? Okay, number 8. Is it fraudulent for a broker to disclose they have no knowledge of the environmental issues? What do you guys think? Hang on to that one. That one's looking pretty good, but we might find a better one. Let's keep looking here. Reveal environmental hazards that their clients ask them not to reveal. You mean lie about it? Yeah, right. Is that fraudulent? Yeah, well, I don't know. Deliberately misrepresent the condition of a property. Now that's a very affirmative thing that you did there. Deliberately misrepresent the condition of a property. Let's hang on to that one. Okay, and then D, advise the seller to disclose all environmental issues. Okay, do you think it's fraudulent for the broker, look at D again, to advise them they have to disclose in different environmental problems? Of course not. Any environment, if they have known environmental problems, if, for example, they know they have lead-based paint in their building, they've got to disclose that. If they know they have asbestos and it needs to be handled, they have to disclose that too. This deliberate misrepresentation is a big no-no, guys. So if you're leaning towards that one, that is a fraudulent act. You don't ever want to do that. And that would be the correct answer to this question. But look at B, to reveal environmental hazards that they asked them not to reveal. Is that fraudulent? Now, don't tell anyone about this. Well, of course you have to tell them about it, So not fraudulent. I mean, it's not fraudulent to reveal things they ask you not to if you know you have to. And D, to disclose that they have no knowledge of environmental issues. That's not fraudulent. You just don't have any knowledge of them. Okay. And maybe you should, but maybe you shouldn't. It really kind of depends on if there's any potential for that. But correct answer to this one. Sometimes, you might lean towards one of these, but you have to choose the most correct. Well, it's a little bit correct, but it's not entirely correct. All right, you have to go with C here, because deliberately misrepresenting the condition of a property is definitely a fraudulent act, and it's something that can happen if you're not on top of your game. You really need to develop a talent for sniffing out problems. I mean, when you walk into a home and you see water stains on the ceiling, and the roof is probably leaking somewhere. Oh no, there's not a problem at all. Now, some sellers, they'll try to cover that up and whatnot, but most people in Utah aren't that way. But you don't want to list the house where they've tried to hide a lot of things. Which brings up an issue. One of the things that I like to work is out-of-town owners, and I've had an opportunity this week to do some tutoring for 2 different students. So I spent about 4 hours this week working with students one-on-one, and that's available to you guys. I'm not going to charge you for it. But if you want to get together and go through some things, I'm happy to help you any way that I can. We usually meet at a public library, and then we go into a study room, and then we, get you all straightened out on whatever issues you need straightening out on and get you ready for the test. But it's, I have limited time, but on the other hand, I'll make time for you guys because we want you to pass. We want you to pass the first time. We're very committed to getting you through that test. But that's given me the opportunity to sit down with them and talk to them not only about, getting through the exam, but, we spent a tiny bit of time talking to them about, I did, about, how to get started and how to get started quickly and how to get things going. I mean, I got my first listing and I got my first sale my first week in this business. You know, why dilly-dally around? I mean, let's get out there and get something done, you know? I mean, you can do that too. You know, I worked real hard because I had to, you know. I mean, it was just my wife and I and our little son. And of course, I was a much younger man then, but on the other hand, you know, I made Rookie of the Year. And then, you know, happy to do that and happy to have the money and make it work. I sold 58 properties my first year, 98 my second. I believe in fast starts. You need a fast start, you know, to quit this stuff. Well, it might take me 3 months to get a deal. No, it's not going to take you 3 months. If anyway, we could talk about that another time. Let's look at number 9, getting off track. But I get excited. I get excited not only about you getting through the exam, but getting some business. Okay. We need good people to get in this business and then stick with it. After the seller accepts an offer on a property, the listing broker discovers damage in the ceiling caused by a leaky roof. Now, what should the broker do? That, you know, is this closed yet? Or have we just done an offer and the offer was accepted? Well, the question doesn't say anything about closing. It says that you have an accepted offer on the property. And this is what we call the executory stage. You know, you're under contract and you're working to get the loan and everything else, the title work and everything done in order to close this transaction out. But you discover that there's a problem. And the problem is leaky roof. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to have to do something. And A is the correct answer here. You got to immediately inform the buyer's agent of what you discovered, and then you've got to figure out how you're going to get it fixed. Is it going to be something that's going to fall only onto the seller, or is it going to be something where it's going to require a whole new roof and maybe there's some negotiation there, or maybe there's not? I mean, you can't ignore it. You've got to jump on it. You got to get it taken care of. Lenders are particularly sensitive to bad roofs. In fact, a lot of times they tell their appraiser who's going out to look at the property to pay particular attention to the roof because it can cause so many problems down the road. And they don't want problems down the road with the house, because that leads to problems with their loan. You know, people just quit paying, and this is not a good thing. B, assume the buyer will discover the damage during his due diligence. Well, they probably will. But hey, if you know something that you found out, then you got to let them know. Inform only their client. It's under contract. That buyer has some rights to this property, but they also have the right to be treated fairly. So make sure that, you know, that enters into the conversation and that information is passed down the line. Advise your client to expect to pay for the repair. Well, that may or may not happen, but we'll have to. It may be negotiated, or they may have to repair. Now, obviously, if it's a whole new roof, that's going to be one thing. But if it's, you know, just a $300 or $400 repair, that's something else. Let's look at number 10, please. Oh, I wanted to say. One of the things that I talked about with one of the agents, or the soon to be an agent that I worked with this week, it was something that I like to work on, and that's out-of-town owners. Now, when I'm working with an out-of-town owner, it could be a situation where they inherited the house. You know, one of the spouses, parents live there, and then mom passed away, and now they inherited the house and they've been renting it. They may not even have seen that house for years. Okay. You know, maybe they've had the same tenant in it for 4 or 5 years. Who knows? But now they're putting it up for sale. And one of the things that they're going to have to do is put together a property disclosure. And so what a lot of them will do is they say, I don't know, haven't seen the house in 4 years. Well, that doesn't give the buyers much insight to what it's all about. So with these out-of-town owners, what I normally require them to do, you know, if they want me to represent them and sell that property for them, is I require them as part of the deal to, number one, go ahead and get a property inspection. Now that's going to cost them $300-400. Let's say it's $400. Okay. And then the other thing I require them to do, the second thing, is I require them to give the buyer a 1-year home warranty. which will cost them another $400 or $500. Okay, so about $1,000 is going to come out of pocket on this home that they inherited. But it's probably free and clear, and they've been getting rent on it and whatnot, and it's better to work with someone that knows what they're getting into. And that's why I require the home inspection. And, the buyer might want to do their own home inspection, but usually because of the cost of it, they'll just go with the one that the seller provided them with, and as long as it's done by a reliable person. And then they have that home warranty, which will cover repairs, usually with a $60 or $80 deductible. If the dishwasher goes out, they have a number they can call. Someone will come in and replace it or repair it. And they're out of pocket $60 to $80, depending on the home warranty. But they feel a lot better about that. Or they might just replace the whole thing, because of its age, and they can't get the parts, which is happening a lot right now. You can't get parts for older appliances, so they just have to replace it, which, the buyers are real happy with that. Okay, well, anyway, we got a real estate agent. He closed the deal. The buyer's from out of the country, and they cannot attend the closing. What should the agent do? Well, hey, you're getting real close to a closing. You better do something, because we don't get paid unless they close. All right. So should the agent attend the closing and sign on behalf of the buyer? Okay. Just having a listing doesn't give you the right to sign for them. Number B, advise the buyer to have an attorney draft a limited power of attorney. Okay, that's a good answer. Probably a good answer, because it's the right answer. C, get errors and omissions insurance. That's something your broker probably already has. E&O insurance doesn't pay for fraud, but they do pay for stupidity, or you just flat out, should have done better, or you made a mistake. And it's a good thing to have to back you up, but that has nothing to do with this transaction. This is that's something that we are covered by in our activities as an agent. What we're talking about here is a buyer, who can't come to closing because they're going to be out of the country, or they just would rather have somebody else be there for them for one reason or another. Create an addendum to the purchase contract that allows the agent to sign for the buyer. Okay, well, out of all these, you're going to have to get a power of attorney, B. And this is something that you can't do. I mean, this is something an attorney should do. And yeah, I know there's some on the internet that you can find, and they probably would be good enough. But I'll tell you who really has to be warm and fuzzy with this power of attorney. The person that is really, really going to tune in on this power of attorney is the title company, because they're the one that is ensuring that the documents were handled correctly for the lender, and they're also ensuring to that buyer and other people with their title insurance that there was a proper transfer of title. And if somebody else is signing that deed on behalf of the seller, then they're going to have to feel really good about that power of attorney. So I would never have the buyers just do a random power of attorney they found on the internet, or because the title company may not feel as specific enough. So what I do is I ask the title company who they would like to prepare the title of the power of attorney, and sometimes they have one, pretty much a standard form that they like to use, and sometimes they can recommend attorney, and sometimes they have an attorney on staff that'll take care of that. But always make sure that your title company has looked at that title of attorney, that power of attorney, because they're the ones that are insuring it, and they want to feel good about it. Errors and omission insurance, no, that's something for us as agents and brokers. Create an addendum. No, we're not going to do this by addendum. It has to be done with power of attorney. It has to be notarized, and whatnot. Let's look at number 11, please. Okay, on number 11, we got how long must lead-based paint disclosures be kept by the broker? Brokers have to keep records, and this is consistent with our record-keeping requirement here in Utah. So is it 3, 5, 2, or 1? 1's kind of short. 2's a little longer, but not very long. 5 is quite a bit of time. So if you're leaning towards 3, that's the right answer. Okay. Brokers have to keep records for 3 full calendar years, after the transaction close. So transactions that close in December, you're going to keep it like 30, 37 months or something. But things that close in January, you keep it almost 4 years, because it's 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction. Okay. And those records have to be kept by the broker. They have to be kept in a place where they're safe, and the division can come and look at them and audit if they want to. And so it's at least it's consistent. It's 3 years on all records, not just the lead-based paint disclosures. Okay, so 3 full calendar years after the transaction year. Number 12, please. In fulfilling a listing agreement, one of the major risk areas is finding a buyer who turns out to be unqualified, exceeding the authority of the agreement, showing a property without the presence of the owner. Now, most of the time we advise the owners not to be around when the property is shown. Their agent will bring them through. Sometimes on real exquisite properties where there's a lot of expensive things and whatnot, the owner may require that you be there for every showing. If just remember, if you're agreeing to that, then that's your agreement. You need to be there for every showing. And normally when I have a seller that wants to do that, I'll say, okay, now I have a licensed assistant that works with me. Is it okay if she comes instead of me? So there's 2 of us now. Well, really, this listing belongs to my broker. So could my broker come instead of me or my assistant? So now there's 3 of us that are available. And because you need more than one person. I mean, come on, you could be out showing property. You could be at your daughter's dance recital. I mean, there's a lot of other things that might be going on that you need to be somewhere else, and you can't be there for every single showing. So you need to work with them on that and come up with a workable solution. And usually that just means having more people that they would approve of being in the home when the home is being shown, if that's important to them. It doesn't happen that often, but there are people that want you there, and if that's it and that's what you agree to, that's what you need to do. So what do we got here? Really the biggest risk is B, exceeding the authority of the agreement. The listing is very specific in what it allows you to do. Advertise is one of the things that's specifically delineated in that listing. Putting a sign on the property is delineated in the listing. But it gives you the authority to maybe have a key or put a key in a lockbox and that sort of thing. Advertise the property. I mentioned putting a sign on property. It's real specific. But it doesn't give you the authority to, replace the water heater. If it's maybe it's a vacant home, or maybe it's occupied. It doesn't give you the authority to be their new property manager if they have a tenant in there or whatnot. So you're limited to putting the property up for sale, and looking and procuring a buyer that they're happy with. So don't exceed that authority. It doesn't give you the right to sign documents for them. It doesn't give you the right to, like I mentioned, contact subcontractors and bring them in to do different things. So if you're going to do some of that in preparation, if they're out of town owners, like I say, I like to work with, then you need to get other documents which allow you to do some of that property management, or choose people to do repairs and whatnot. It'd be additional documentation. Or you could just do it by them approving it in writing by texting or emails and that sort of thing. Email would be preferable over texting because it's trackable. Number 13. In performing a CMA or competitive market analysis, a licensee must be careful too. And Is it A, use the term market value whenever possible? B, show a low suggested selling price to avoid a complaint of misrepresenting the value? Yeah, they're going to be happy with that, right? I mean, C, include the results of a certified appraisal in the analysis. Or D, avoid creating a false impression that the licensee is a certified appraiser. Okay, and out of all these, unless you are a licensed appraiser, and then you'd know, but there's not that many of them anymore. So you probably know you're not. So don't create a false impression that you're a licensed certified appraiser. Okay, you're not. What you are is a real estate agent. You have a lot of experience with values and whatnot, but D is the correct answer here. You need to avoid at all costs that false impression that you're a certified appraiser. Okay. Okay, so I mentioned a little earlier that I like to work out of town owners, and these are different things that you can do. The very first thing you need to do when you're going into business is you need to create a database of everyone you know. You need to have your own sphere of influence in your database. These are people that know and love you. I got my first listing as a referral from my brother-in-law, and I have in that same brother-in-law was my first sale. He bought a house, and my first day in the business, put him in the car, went out, found the house, got all excited about it. I went, sat down with him, wrote up an offer, took it back to the office. My sales manager rewrote it. Oh, well, hey, it's my first one. Okay. And he rewrote it and took it back out, got it signed again, and then got it under contract. And boy, was he excited. But he was also the only person I knew in town. So, I said, okay, Stephen, thanks. But you're the only one I know in town here. I just moved there. Didn't know a soul other than Steve. And so I said, who else that might want to buy or sell something? He says, well, hey, there's a guy in my church group that just said he might want to sell his house. Oh, let's get him on the phone. So we got him on the phone. I went over there later that night. He liked Steve and was willing to accept Steve's endorsement of me. And so that's where I got my first listing. First listing, first sale came from who? Steve. Now, the biggest mistake I see new agents make is that, well, I don't want to contact the people I know until, I've got some experience, because I don't want to screw anything up. You're not going to screw anything up. You've got people watching you. You got a broker, you got a sales manager in many cases. You've got experienced agents in the office that'll sit down with you and go over things with you. You've got backup. No one's going to let you fall off the horse. Well, you might get bucked off, but you're going to be okay. These are people that know and love you. Who else would they want to use? Come on. And they know that you're brand new. It's okay. Everyone was brand new at one point or another. So those individuals that don't follow up on their own sphere of influence, that's one of the reasons why it takes them so long to get going into business. I don't know. There's a lot of different things you can do, and that's something we can talk about another time. But understand this, if you get stuck on something, pick up the phone and call me. Dan, would you throw my number up? The number is, like I mentioned before, 801-556-8000. 801-556-8000. Dan will throw it on the screen. There it is. Easy number to remember. But give me a call. We'll spend a quality 3-4 minutes on the phone, and you'll understand the concept, okay? Don't spend a half an hour trying to look it up in some manual or Googling it on internet or something. Just call me. And if you would like to receive any of those other items I was talking about earlier, the Quizlet program or some of the other review material I have available for you, just get a hold of me, rick@rickroller.com. It'd be easier if you sent me your email, rick@rickroller.com. That way I can just send it right back to you or have my staff do it. So anyway, we appreciate you being with us tonight. These reviews, I think, are one of the most important things you can do for the exam, because we were talking about specific exam type questions. And one of the best ways to prepare for the test is to study specific exam type questions. And we've assembled them here for you, and we spent a little time explaining them. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we appreciate you. thanks for using our school. And if you've wandered onto our site somehow or another and you're gone to another school, welcome. We're happy to have you here. We get calls from people all over the country that say that that these reviews have been very, very helpful for them, but of course, on the national topics. But thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. And don't be a stranger. If you get stuck, give me a call. Thank you. Bye.
Hey everyone, I'm Danny, Professor of Realty. If you enjoyed this review, we have another entire review for the National Real Estate License Exam that has helped people pass the exam 85% or more on their first try. It's called Prep My Exam. Check it out in the comments below in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please give Rick and I some appreciation by clicking on the thumbs up, on the like. We're here to help you, so help us help you by liking and subscribing.